Okay, so to start with, I just want to give you a small overview, or again, you can say a motivation, like why we are interested in, going for machine learning things. Like, what is the point, and at what point right now we are in. Actually, you are just starting this area, but I just wanted to show you like what people have already achieved using this particular kind of technology. So this is the first example that I want to show you. It's a small clip. Just watch and enjoy it, and then you will get to know what actually the real thing which is happening in the current state of the art, so that you know that where you have to go and from where you are starting. So that gap has to be at least known to everyone, like how to how to overcome that gap. So to motivate you, let's see this example first.
4 years ago, we started to wonder, what would shopping look like if you could walk into a store, grab what you want, and just go? What if we could weave the most advanced machine learning, computer vision, and AI into the very fabric of a store so you never have to wait in line? No lines, no checkouts, no registers. Welcome to Amazon Go. Use the Amazon Go app to enter. Then put away your phone and start shopping. It's really that simple. Take whatever you like. Anything you pick up is automatically added to your virtual cart. If you change your mind about that cupcake, just put it back. Our technology will update your virtual cart automatically. So, how does it work? We used computer vision, deep learning algorithms, and sensor fusion, much like you'd find in self-driving cars. We call it Just Walk Out technology. Once you've got everything you want, you can just go. When you leave, our Just Walk Out technology adds up your virtual cart and charges your Amazon account. Your receipt is sent straight to the app, and you can keep going. Amazon Go. No lines, no checkout. No, seriously.
So have you seen this video? Like, was there any interruption watching it? Anyone?
No,
No,
sir.
sir.
So,
It was clear.
so now I think you must be aware of what's going on in the real situation. And it was a video which was shot in 2017, and right now we are in 2021. So, as you know, the video is old, but the progress that they have made in this particular technology that they have, utilized in one of the showrooms, or one of the shops that they are having, it's tremendously, must have been increased. And the algorithms that they are using are actually the latest algorithms of machine learning, deep learning, and other technologies, what they are combining it together to get this out. So this is one of the examples that I normally show to my students to get motivated. And the second example that I want to show you is through Google Duplex. So you watch this video also and see how we are coming into the age of bots, which are basically one of the applications of natural language processing. So you watch this first, and then we will start the lecture. So this is the second video. I will pause it in between somewhere, but you watch this first.
The progress with the assistant. As I said earlier, our vision for our assistant is to help you get things done. The progress with things done is making a phone call. You may want to get an oil change schedule, maybe call a plumber in the middle of the week, or even schedule a haircut appointment. We are working hard to help users through those moments. We want to connect users to businesses in a good way. Businesses actually rely a lot on this, but even in the US, 60% of small businesses don't have an online booking system set up. We think AI can help with this problem. So let's go back to this example. Let's say you want to ask Google to make you a haircut appointment on Tuesday between 10 and noon. What happens is the Google Assistant makes the call seamlessly in the background for you. So what you're going to hear is the Google Assistant actually calling a real salon to schedule the appointment for you. Let's listen.
you. Hi, I'm calling to book a women's haircut for a client. I'm looking for something on May 3rd. Sure, give me 1 second. Mm-hmm. Sure, what time are you looking for around? At 12 p.m. We do not have a 12 p.m. available. The closest we have to that is a 1:15. Do you have anything between 10 a.m. and 12 p.m.? Depending on what service she would like. What service is she looking for? Just a woman's haircut for now. Okay, we have at 10 o'clock. 10 a.m. is fine. Okay, what's her first name? The first name is Lisa. Okay, perfect. So I will see Lisa at 10 o'clock on May 3rd. Okay, great. Thanks. Great. Have a great day. Bye.
So now you can see how there is an automated query which actually when you are saying something, the other side is not a person who is sitting, but it's a bot which actually is speaking, and it will answer you the queries that you are asking for. So this is one of the latest advancements in deep learning and natural language processing, and they are using machine learning also somewhere at the backdrop, but it's a combination of all these things which people are right now using and achieving state of the art results that they are applying on real world problems. So these two which I have shown you are the two practical situations where people are using machine learning and deep learning for their solving the real world tasks. So now what I will do is I will formally start the course on machine learning. So let me do this. So are you able to see the screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So as you have seen, these two applications which are built upon machine learning, deep learning, and on natural language processing. So there is an intersection of all these areas that actually implement all these latest technologies. But we will first of all study the machine learning thing. So this is the one of the fundamental things on which deep learning is built upon, and then later on you can proceed further in different applications and in different areas which you want. But once the basics are clear, then only you can do that. So the very first question that everybody will ask you is like, what is machine learning? Like, if anybody wants you to make you understand, like, what is machine learning, so that can be understood using this diagram as I have shown you here. So you have some data. You can see on the left side we have some string of data, and what machine learning is doing is machine learning is actually getting to understand what this data is, what is the complexity of this data, how it is lying, but in terms of the space where it is. So it actually captures the complexity of this data. I will explain you what that is, and then it comes up with the function. It returns you with a function fx. This function which a normal person cannot formulate by seeing this data, this set of data. A normal person cannot come up with this fx, but machine learning actually tries to get the inherent mystery that is lying inside this data and create a function fx, which from which you can use this function fx to generate new data or to test new data. So this function, which is actually created by the machine learning algorithm, is basically the beauty of machine learning, because it tries to gather that data and tries to find the function that is lying behind that. So in terms of the statements, you can see it's like machine learning algorithms develop a mathematical model. It mathematical model means this function which I am telling, based on the sample data, which is known as a training data. So sample data means this data which I am showing you here, it's a sample data. So we also call this as training data. We will understand all these terms as we go further, but by training data you can understand that you have to train this machine learning algorithm with something. So that data which we are using for that is called as training data. We will understand all this in the next slide. So this sample data which we are calling as training data, in order to make predictions or decisions without being explicitly programmed to do so. So what happens is, once you come up with this function which is actually mysteriously hidden in this data set, which is shown over here, then you make predictions on this fx by passing some other data into it, and it will generate some decisions for you. So this is a overall understanding of what machine learning is all about. So I will give you one small example also. Like if you have some images here, like you have some images of cats, let us say. So this is a image of cat, uh, same image of cat. Basically, you have multiple images of cat. So C1, C2, C3. So there will be multiple images of the cat. So what happens is these images we call as IM1, IM2, IM3, let us say. So they are all cat images. So what happens is they are in the space of natural images. So we have a natural image space in three dimension. We have natural image space in three dimension. So here if we try to plot these three images, C1, C2 and C3, they will be, they will be somewhere like this, they will be lying somewhere here, like C1, C2, C3. And and there are, like, millions of such images, let us say. So we have, let us say 1000 such images. So all these images will be lying somewhere, in this small region of space, and we call this as, let us say, C1000 here. So what machine learning do is it tries to find a relationship among these images, which is from C1 to C1000. So it tries to find a relation between these set of images which are given over here. So it will try to find a boundary like this, which we are calling as, here we call this as fx here. So it tries to find a function that can classify all these images as the cat images. So what it will do is it will understand that these images which are inside this boundary are cat images. And how will they do it? How that machine learning will do it? It will do it by finding a boundary outside it, which is fx. And a normal person, it's very difficult to find that boundary, because that boundary can be very complex. Right now I am showing it in a form of something like this, but it can be, it can be anything like this also. The boundary can be very complex, like this. So this type of boundary, a human person, it's very difficult for him to, come up with that. So this is done easily by using machine learning. So machine learning is nothing but it reads the data and come up with a function fx that can help you out in making some decisions. So any question on this? So if you have any questions, then it's okay, and then otherwise I will go to the next slide. Okay, so if you have no questions, so this is another diagram which shows that same story. So what it is showing you is this is a machine learning box. It's a black box. It's a black box. So we are calling it as M. It's a model. It's a machine learning model that we will discuss in our future lectures. So we are calling it by M. So what it does is it takes the data set. So here we have data set. So this is the data set of cat images, or data set of flower images, or any images, or string of bits. So it depends on your application, whether you are working on in computer vision, whether you are working in natural language processing, whether you are working in, whether you are working in signal processing. So it hardly matters, but the thing that matters is, depending upon your application, we will have, different type of data sets. So this particular D is actually representing the data set box. So you are using that data set and you are doing learning of this machine M. We will understand what learning means. So uh, it 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 helps in this machine learning to learn, learn that model. And then what you do is you do inferencing. Inferencing means you are actually, putting some arbitrary image here. This arbitrary image is, let us say, I am dash, and let us say it's a dog image. Here we have trained it with cat. So this is an arbitrary image of dog, and you know that this dog image is not there in this cat image. So once you feed it into this particular model, then this particular model should tell you that this image is a cat image or a dog image. So that type of decision, that whether this image is a dog image or a cat image, is basically what you are doing is you are actually inferencing. You are actually getting a decision out of this model. So that is shown over here. You are inferencing it and you are displaying it on the monitor, or as a user you are actually getting some knowledge out of this unknown model, which has encapsulated the nonlinear function fx of this particular data. So this is another way of explaining what machine learning is. So let us formally start the machine learning thing. So this is a very typical situation in all the machine learning algorithms. So as you can see, we have different steps that are involved in machine learning, and all these steps are common in every algorithm, whether you work on machine learning, any algorithms of that machine learning, or you go to deep learning, or you go to natural language processing. The steps that I have written over here will remain always the same. So what are they? The first step is called as data collection step. That is one of the important steps that we have in machine learning. I will make you understand what that is. Second step is feature design. So in feature design, we will understand what that is, what is the importance of that, and then we will have third step, which we call as model train. What is model training? We will understand that also. And the fourth step, what we call as model validation, and this is also one of the important steps. So all these four steps are common to any machine learning, deep learning, natural language processing. Wherever you go, you will find your problem divided into four different categories. So let us go one by one and understand each of these steps in detail so that there is no confusion left out. So the very first step that we have is called as data collection. And what is that? It is something like this. So what you do is, in this particular application or in this particular example, what I am doing is I am actually taking an example where our model should distinguish between whether a particular image is a cat dog, whether the particular image is a cat or it's a dog. So we want our machine learning model to predict for us that whether the output that is generated by the machine learning is a cat image or a dog image. I want my machine learning model to tell that. So if that is the situation, the very first step that is required is data collection. So what that means is, in order to train the machine learning model, we have to have a data set. As I have already shown you in this slide, this box I have already shown you here. So this is very important to create a container of the box, which will help you in learning the machine learning stuff, because it will some way or the other helps in learning the model. So in case of cats versus dog, you have to collect the images of cats here, and you have to collect the images of dogs here. So this is the dog image, this is the cat image. So if, let us say, these cat and dog images are very simple, right? So you can easily easily, it is available through internet. You can download it from there and separate it into two different classes. So there is no problem in that. But the challenge comes when you are working in industry, and if you are working in a problem where data sets are not available, then what will you do? In that situation, you have to create that data set yourself. You have to create yourself, and then only you can use it for training, because there is no predefined data set available for that problem. So you have to come up with your own, and this data collection thing at least takes 1 year to it takes completely 1 year to 1 to somewhere less than that to gather the data set. It's very difficult, and data set collection is one of the important things in machine learning, and it's very expensive also, because if you do not have that data, then you cannot perform any machine learning algorithm. So if somebody else has that data, you have to purchase from him or her or in their lab to get yourself acquainted, or to get yourself working on that same problem. They will give you by either you have to spend money for that, or you have to credit them in your research. So this step is very important, and it's very expensive step also. So right now, in this particular case, we are considering cats and dog classification. So these are the cat images, these are the dog images. So anybody having any problem in this slide? Any question? Or in the previous slide? Okay. So let us now discuss the second step. What is that second step? So we have already collected these training sets of cats and dogs. The second step which is involved is feature design. This is one of the most important things in machine learning. If you fail in this particular step, then your machine learning model will not be able to give you the correct results. So that this is that important. So what is this feature design? Let us discuss first of all the feature design in terms of the motivation, like why feature design was thought of, what is the reason behind it, what is the motivation behind it. And once we know what is the motivation behind it, then we can understand what is the need of using these features. So the important thing that what happened was when the scientists were actually developing these machine learning models, they realized that we have to they realized that these machine learning models have to mimic the human brain. Like we know that machine learning thing is actually doing the same thing as the human brains are doing. So they want to understand that what is going inside our brain, that so that they can develop a similar analogy to the machine learning models. They wanted to infuse that behavior which our brain is having, the same behavior they want to fuse it into the machine learning models. So for that case, what they did was they consulted doctors and they asked them that what is going inside our brain, and that helps in understanding a certain picture. So here you see I have a diagram showing you. Here this is a person who is looking into, who is looking into this picture here. So this picture is of a person who is sleeping, with a dog besides him. So the important thing is, what medical doctors have told to the research scientist is that if they have, if they have implanted something on their brain, and they are actually, putting electrodes here. So you can see we have electrodes. So what happens is when a person is seeing this particular image which is seen over here, then in the brain it is actually seeing something like this. These are the three different perspectives of that same image they are seeing. And what is these three images? If you have if you have gone through image processing things, then you will be easily understand what are these three images. But if you do not have understanding of image processing, then also there is no problem. I will try to explain you what these images are. These images are basically, for example, if this is I1, this is I2, and this is I3. So one thing that is important is that in this particular image I1, you observe that most of the part of this image will have these type of edges. You can see here we have diagonal edge here, right? This is the diagonal edge, as you can see of this thing. So these type of edges you can see over here also. In this particular image you will have all these slant type of activity. So here also this is the thing, right? So these are the edges that are mostly seen by the brain. In the same way, another part of the brain is seeing something like this type of edge. So you will observe that this particular image here will have some patterns which has this type of patterns here. And for this particular image on the bottom, it will see edges which have this type of thing. So what they realized is that our brain is not actually seeing this picture. It is actually seeing these edges which are given over here. So these edges are this, and they and our brain is actually combining all these images, and then we are, inside some activities happening, and then we are seeing this particular image. And it's not necessary that they are only seeing these three images only. There will be multiple of such that images and multiple edges. Like it can be something like this edge, or it can be like this edge. So the brain adds up all these edges, and then uh, it comes to the decision that this is the image that we are seeing in our brain. So this is a so what they have seen and what they concluded is that these images are not red, but their features are red. Their features are important. So if you learn these type of features which are given over here, this feature, then these features are important, and these features are to be used for making some decisions. Any confusion here? If you have any, then let me know. So these features which I am showing you here are the main important thing. These three blocks, these three, they help us in making the decision. Any confusion?
Sir,
Yes.
are these features same for every image or
No, no, no,
different?
no. They will be different. But what happens is, the importance is that that is the beauty of machine learning. Machine learning actually learns these features as you give more and more images. So it will try to come up with some other features also. It's not necessary that it will learn only these three. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So once we have the motivation, like why feature design is important, so let us see now. Uh, the actual implementation of these feature designs. So now our main target is that we want to separate cats from dogs. So if you want to separate cats from dogs, so what things comes to your mind that can separate the cats from dogs? Any idea? Like how can you separate them the two? Like if you want to separate cats from dogs, how will you separate? Like if I ask you like this is a cat and this is a dog, how you make that decision? On what basis you
So
make
the
that
shape
decision?
of ears, then the shape of nose,
Right, right.
those kind
So
of things.
so that type of thing you are actually processing in your brain. So that what you are asking is, okay, what is the shape of that particular animal or the nose? Then only you realize that, oh, this is a dog, or this is a cat. So these are the things that I was telling you, these particular features which I am telling you here. So so the important thing is, in this particular feature design, if let us say we take nose size as one of the features, then we can vary that nose size from small to large. So if that is taken as one of the features, then you can separate dogs from cats. But there may be a situation where a dog may have small nose also. There may be a situation. So this particular feature, though it can separate the two classes in most of the situations, but there may be a situation where dog small nose will be there and that dog will come this side here, because it might be the case that that dog has a small nose. So in order to remove that type of thing, in order to remove that particular case, you are taking another feature also. This is the second feature. So that also tells you one more important thing: the more features you take, the more robustness will come in your machine learning algorithm. So here you are, earlier you were taking only one feature f1, but you saw that there can be a case where dog can have a small nose or a cat can have a long nose, but it's difficult in case of cat. But still, if that is the case, you take another feature f2 to make that machine learning model more robust, and now you are taking ear shape into consideration. So what is that ear shape thing? That it can be from round to pointy. So based on the shape of the ear, you are making a decision now. So now you have two features, F1 and F2. So now your machine learning model is very robust. Maybe you can take third feature also, like length of the hairs. Length of the hairs can be taken as another feature. So that will make another robust. That will add more robustness to the classification problem that we will discuss. So these are the two features that we are taking currently for this particular problem. And now you can see that when I am using f1 on the x-axis and f2 on the y-axis, our images are getting separated. Our images are getting separated into two different classes. This is basically class 1 and this is basically class 2. So you can see now that we have separated them into two different classes. But you are separating yourself. Machine is not separating. By saying that means machine is not making this function outside this, you know, cat, or function f2 outside this particular, dog. It is actually you who have, by in your mind, you have made these clusters. So we want our machine learning to create this function fx, f1x or f2x, or there is a third function also which is like this, which we call as f3x. So either of it is okay. So if you have f1x, f2x, then these type of problem is called as classification problem. But if you have a function generated by the machine which is f3x, then we call it as a regression problem. So here we will do it, we will understand what that means. But the important thing is, you have to you have to come up with these functions. Like then only your machine learning will be able to do the job of classification or regression thing. You understand? Are you able to understand what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this is the target. So in order to do that, what is the third step? The third step that comes out is model training. So this is important. So this is the third step of that pipeline which we were discussing here. So I will just go back and show you. This is the third step which we calling as model training. So what that model training is, which I have already told you, is that we have classified or we have separated cats and dogs based on our features, but machine doesn't know. So machine will take these data inside and will convert and generate this line. This generated line is fx, which I was telling you. So this is generated by the machine and it's acting as a boundary between these two different classes. So you have to, the machine will do this job. So this is actually a boundary between the two. So if a point next new point comes here, let us say, then what will happen? Machine will tell, okay, oh, this is in this boundary, this is in this region, so it will be a dog. And if another sample comes here, then it will say, oh, this is in this region, so it will be a cat. But if it comes here, let us say, at this point, then machine will be confused, and it will give you a random answer to it. So that thing we cannot trust. But there are some algorithms which actually tolerate some error also here. Like let us say, if you have the tolerance level is there, this down boundary will have some tolerance. It will be like epsilon naught. Epsilon naught is very small, so it will say, okay, if this is here and if your boundary is epsilon naught this side, we can take this particular thing into this particular region. So that type of algorithms are also there which actually tolerates these boundaries. This is a hard boundary. The center one is a hard boundary, but there are some algorithms which will say, okay, let's move delta this side or delta this side to to relax the condition a bit so that we can correctly classify this particular image as dog or cat. So it depends on the situation. So we will understand all these algorithms later on also. Don't worry about it. But this is just a glimpse of what will come in the lectures which are like 15th or 20th from here. So so this is basically model training, which is one of the important steps where you have to train your model to get this function out. Okay, so now the important thing that comes out now is called as validation dataset. This validation dataset is also called as testing dataset. And in testing dataset, what you do is, as you know, that you have trained your model to detect whether it's a cat or dog. So now obviously you will feed a image which is either a cat or a dog to detect whether that particular image is a cat or if it is of a dog. There is no point in putting an image of camel. So there is no it's ridiculous to ask that question. So what you have is, you have these cat images and you have another set of dog images. And please note the images that you will take in this particular situation, like in the testing data set, these images should not be there in the training images. This is one of the important concepts in machine learning. And what we say is that the testing data set should not contain the same images as that of the training data set. Otherwise, the results that your machine learning will give it to you are completely biased. By biased means, because you are using these images in the training and you are using the same images for the testing, then you are not actually testing the complete capability of the machine learning model. What you are doing is you are just putting that same images in. It's something like, there is an exam where I am giving you the same questions in your assignments and same questions in your exam also. So what is the point in judging your intelligence on that particular subject? So that type of situation here. So so as you can see, even in this diagram, these training images which I am showing over here are different from the testing images which are shown over here. That's why we kept it as a separate space. So this set of images will not be there in this images. And normally the ratio that we take in doing the separation is 70 is to 30. This is the typical separation between that. Like for example, if you have a data set having 1000 images, so what you do is you take 70% of that images into training set and 30 and the remaining of that into validation data set. So that type of activity you have to do while performing your experiments or whatever in your real life applications of machine learning. Okay, so once you have this testing data set available, so let's test the algorithm that we have just shown over. So as you can see, all these images which I am showing over here are not from the training images. Please note, these images which I am showing here are images from the testing data set. And you can see that this image is correctly classified properly. This image is also properly classified. This one also properly classified as cat, this cat, this cat. But you see this one. If you see this one, this actually comes in this particular category, though it's a dog image, but it is coming in the cat boundary. Can anybody tell me why it by seeing this particular image, why it's like that, why it came here in this particular class, though it's a dog?
So the features of this dog is bit similar to cat.
Yes.
Maybe that.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, because if you see closely, I'll zoom it out. You can see it has, somewhere the pointy ears here. So that type of thing actually made this machine learning model to make a wrong decision and classified this as the cat image because of this particular feature. So that's why I was telling that if you use a third feature, let us say eye color, or maybe or maybe the shape of maybe hair length, or something like that, or tail length, something like that. If you come up with a third feature, then if you plot on that third scale, so this is right now in 2 dimension, but when you have third feature also, then it will be in 3 dimension. So you will have one feature here f1, another feature f2, which we already have, and then we have a third feature f3 also. So in that situation, it might be the case that this will again get back to this particular class. So that's why if you have more number of features, the robustness of the machine learning algorithm increases. But that doesn't mean that you keep on increasing the features indefinitely. So we will understand that type of situation also, that there is no point in keep on increasing the features. But the important point is, if you have 1,000 features, how to select few of them which are actually able to give you correct classification. So that type of study we will understand in our later lectures, that how to do that type of study. So till now I think everybody is comfortable with what I have told.
Sir,
Yes.
I have one doubt, sir.
Yes.
Sir, is that algorithm able to identify the features which is actually classifying between these classes, or is it the uh, programmer who should actually give the features?
Right now in this particular case, it's a programmer who is actually doing that. But
Okay.
if you want to automatically identify it, that part comes in the neural network area. So that's why I
Oh,
was telling you, when I was doing our first class, I was telling you that I will stop at neural network, because from there I teach deep learning. So my earlier course which I taught last time actually started from neural networks. So neural networks actually gets you these features automatically selected for you. But in this particular set of algorithms which we will be discussing here, we have to come up with our intuition, or from our side, that what kind of features will really help us in doing these classifications.
okay, sir.
Okay. Okay, so this thing completes the all steps of the data pipeline that we were discussing. And please note that these issues or these steps will remain same for any algorithm that you will be that we will be discussing in this class, or maybe any of your advanced machine learning, data learning, or natural language processing class. Okay, so once we completed this, let's discuss the type of machine learning algorithms that we normally encounter in our, this particular course. So the different type of machine learning algorithms that we have is basically supervised learning algorithms. So these are the first type of algorithms. Here what we do is we give this particular model which we have already shown here a set of images. Let us say we say that we are feeding this model particular images of A, and please note these A are of different orientation. These are not A of any fixed like this. I have feeded this particular model with different orientations of A, like this or like this, or like a twisted A like this. So every orientation of this A is fed into this particular model, so that model should learn whether these particular images are images of A or not. And also note that we are actually uh, along with the image that we are feeding into this model, we are also telling it that they are A alphabets. So we are actually supervising, we are actually teaching the model that okay, if you are feeding this A image, this is A. If you are feeding this image, this is also A. So we are doing a teaching strategy here. I just like I am teaching you, in the same way we are teaching the model that these images are A. So that type of information is also going into this particular model along with the images that you are feeding along. So normally what we say that these images, what we have here, we call them as X, and the information that we are giving along with the image, we call it as Y. And these are sometimes also called as labels, and these are images. So by labels we mean we are telling that okay, uh, a is actually A, this is also A, this is also A. So we will say that y equal to 0 means A, and if we feed, let us say, B for example, then we will create y equal to 1, which is B. So these are the labels which I am attaching to the images of A. That's why we are saying okay, 0 is attached to A. That means we are attaching a label. That means we are passing a information, separate information to the model to make this model understand that these images which are actually defined in different shapes are actually A. So now the important thing is, in testing phase, the A that I am selecting is not from the same orientation that we have here in this particular data set. This A will be completely different from this particular A. That's why I have taken it with different color. Here I am taking all A with same blue color, but here I am taking it with different color A, just to show you that this image should not be in this particular set of image. So in this testing, when you do this testing, our model should say it's a A based on orientation or whatever features it will learn through this particular problem. So this is supervised learning, and what you are doing is you are actually teaching the model during the training process that this is A, this is A, this is A, this is A, this is not A, this is B, this is C. Based on that you are doing. That's why we call it as a supervised learning. It's a teaching that is happening side by side. So one of the examples of this supervised learning is a typical example is share price versus the revenue. So as you can see here, on the x-axis we have revenue, on the y-axis we have share price. So we have these data sets, these points which are actually here. So these are all training points. So what we want to do is we want to estimate the new company revenue, the price of that. So we have to estimate the price of that share based on the revenue thing. So what happens is, now what you will do is, the important thing is you have to do a regression task here where it will fit a model. This is a model that is fitted onto this particular data set, and this is basically fx that I was telling you, and it is generated by the machine learning model. And based on that, what will happen now is you will give a new company revenue here. So please see, this x which is here is not the same x that you have here for this particular data set, because this is the training set and this is the testing set. So now what we want to inquire is, we want to inquire whether this particular x is there, what is the value of that share price for this particular revenue. So now what you do is, once you fit this line properly over here, this is fx. So what you do is you just take that point onto this line and see what is the value out. So this is basically the share price for that particular revenue which you have not seen here. So this type of regression, this type of problem we call it as regression problem, because it tries to fit a line and tries to estimate for you the next type of samples which are not there in the training set, and it comes in the category of supervised machine learning. Another category under supervised machine learning is classification tasks. In this particular take, what we have is we have some data set which are shown on the red points, and we have some data set which is shown over here in the blue points. As we also discussed in our cat versus dog classification, it is similar to that. So in classification, what we do is we teach this particular algorithm, okay, these are all red images are all of cat, and these blue images are all of dog. So we are putting a label also along with that. That means for cat I am saying y equal to 0, for dog I am saying y equal to 1. So these are the labels which are attached with cat and dog. So once we do that type of supervised learning, we make these machine learning algorithms learn what cat and dog is. Then it will come up with this boundary which is fx, and then when you do a test image here, this image is not there in this data set, and then it will give you the answer that okay, this is particularly a dog image. So these type of decisions where you make where you select between either 0 or 1, like whether it's a cat or a dog, or maybe out of 10 categories of flower you are selecting which category of that flower is, like whether it's a rose or some other species among the 10 categories. Then that type of problem is also called as classification problem, and it all lies in the category of supervised learning. Any question here in this particular case? Okay, so one of the practical examples of this is object detection. As you can see here, you might be aware of all these things, like when you take a snap of your friend using your camera or digital camera, either of it, you will see some bounding box that is coming in front of the face. So how come that particular digital camera or a mobile phone knows that this is the particular face of a person which is standing in front of the camera? So the important point is that there is an inherent machine learning algorithm that is actually working at the back end of your camera in the chip that is installed in that camera, and that is helping out in creating that bounding box which you see on your mirror, on your Nikon mirror, if you see on the DSLR camera or on your mobile screen. So what is inherently happening? The thing that is happening is in that particular camera, the chip in which the algorithm is trained, what that algorithm is trained on? The algorithm is trained on whether the particular a particular bounding box is having a face or not a face. So this bounding box, if you see, is always of fixed size in your camera. So what happens is, what they have done is, in this particular pixel size, let us say it's 28 cross 28, they have taken several images. They have taken several images of face and not a face. Like if you see here, this is a face and this is not a face. So they have taken millions of that type of images where we have face and not a face, and they trained their algorithm like this here. So this is the feature space of face, and this is the basically space where you are separating face from non-face. So all the 28 cross 28 images that are of face are lying here. So there are all these testing images which I am showing in pink are actually the images that they have taken from the testing dataset, and that of the not face, which are not face, are lying here. So now what you do, when you are snapping a photo from a digital phone, this particular image is not there in this particular data set. That is for sure. So if that is the case, what happens is that algorithm will actually run the 28 cross 28 box which is shown over here, like this. It will move like this, it will move like this. So it will scan the complete image by running the bounding box to the right, It will keep on doing it till it scans the complete image. So once it scans the complete image, there is a position, as you will all aware of, that these two faces will come in that bounding box when you are scanning from left to right, and then when you are going from top to bottom. So when these two images will come, it will say, okay, these are the face images here, and these are not face images which are shown over here on this particular situation. So when this type of situation happens, it will create a bounding box here for you. And any questions
Like
here?
doubt. Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
yeah.
What happens if the face is like cutting into the bounding box, or like too small for the bounding box,
Yeah,
or
in
too
that
big
type,
for?
yeah, in that type of situations, where actually, this is very ideal situation where I am telling you. But in that situation, what happens is people have come up with the different type of anchor boxes. We go from hierarchically from we take three different situations. We take three different boxes of different size, and we try to come up with a decision where in all these three we will have faces or not. Like we have to zoom in. These are some advanced algorithms where all these issues which you are telling are catered of. But
Uh,
this is very ideal situation where I'm telling you this.
so in that case, entire shot is rendered three time, right? With
No, no,
different size box.
yeah, yeah, it will be like that. Or you can scale down the images also. Like for example, if you have a image like this, what happens is you take this image, you scale down to this image, you scale down again to this. Then what happens is one of the box will capture the face, because as you scale down the image down the hierarchical level, the small box will also contain this particular image, this one.
Okay, so got it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So that type of algorithms you can if you really want to go into that, it will be more into deep learning. And people have used inception networks. If you go there, then in inception network they have used separate masks. So that separate masks that are used in inception networks are basically used to cater all these type of problems. And even if you want, you can if you want to understand yourself, then you can go for YOLO algorithm, which is you look only once. So in that type of algorithms, you can understand how they are catering all these type of complex issues which are there. This is one of the typical example which I am telling you, ideal situation. Okay, so these are the supervised learning algorithms which we will understand while we go through the course, but this is just to list it out. So one is linear regression, logistic regression, k nearest neighbor, support vector machines, decision trees. So they all different type of algorithms which actually are trying to do some formulation to come up with fx. This is the main thing. They try to come up with some function fx from which you input something and come up with a decision. So that type of thing. So these all are these all come under the category of supervised learning algorithms. The second learning algorithm that we have is unsupervised learning. The important thing here is, in unsupervised learning, you are not telling the algorithm whether this is a or this is a b or this is a c. You are not telling it. By not telling means you are not giving the labels that y equal to 1, y equal to 1, y equal to 2. So you are not telling these labels along with the image. You are telling the machine learning algorithm to give results by itself without telling, without actually teaching the algorithm. You want that machine learning should give results by itself on. So that type of thing comes in the category of unsupervised learning. That means automatic learning of the computational rules that describes input data only. So only input data is provided, no other information is provided along with that. So this comes in the category of unsupervised learning. So
Not even the features.
sorry,
Not even the features in unsupervised learning.
it will be features will be there, but that doesn't mean that you are not providing any labels. You are not saying that okay, this is a, this is b, this is c. That type of, that is not a feature. That is, you are actually teaching the machine learning algorithm that it is y equal to 0, y equal to 1, or y equal to 2. That type of thing I'm saying related to the labels which we have here. Okay, so in this particular situation where you have uh, this particular situation, here we have bag of a and c having different orientations. but you are not telling the algorithm with a separate information, which I was telling you earlier, this separate information in terms of y. So I'm not saying that y equal to 0 means A, y equal to 1 means C. I'm not telling this particular thing. And these are not features. These are actually the labels that you are attaching along with A and C, so that you are actually training the model. But these are not the features, please. So these are the situations where we are not putting this information in this particular type of algorithm. This is unsupervised learning, where we are not providing that information. So this information is not there. So what our model has to do is, it has to learn the features and come up with A and C. It has to see how to do that. So that type of thing comes in the category of uh, unsupervised learning. In unsupervised learning, we have two different type of things. One is clustering and dimensionality reduction. These are the two different type of algorithms that you will observe here. In dimensionality reduction, we will discuss this later on in our future lectures. But just to give you a small thing, what happens is, you are actually reducing the dimension of the data set, and you are actually you are projecting it onto a lower dimensional data set. So as you can see here, we have if this is particularly two features, let us say f1 and f2, and you are having these data sets which are shown over here. These data sets are actually pointed out on f1 and f2, which is a two-dimensional space. So now what you do is, you project it onto this line, and this line. So, and if you take this line as a single feature f1, then you have reduced the features from two features to single feature. So there is a reduction in the dimension. So earlier we had two dimensions, now it's only one dimension. So as I was telling you earlier also, during the course, that it's not necessary that if we increase the feature size to large amount, then it will help us in robustness and doing all that type of stuff. Another important thing is to understand which features are important. That is also important along with that. So this dimensionality reduction helps us in doing that. It actually takes only those features into consideration which really helps in doing the classifications thing. So we will understand all these algorithms later, but this is again showing you in high dimensional space. Same story. Okay, so in this situation where we are understanding the clustering algorithm, here you see again we have features here, right? Feature 1, feature 2. As you were telling me earlier, it's one of the student who just asked me, like, we are not giving features or not. So see here, features are already there, but labels are not attached. Earlier we were attaching the labels also, and that labels were helping to teach the machine learning algorithm. But right now what we are doing, we are just feeding this information, and we are not saying anything whether this is cat or this is dog or this is dog or this is cat. We don't know. So it has to distinguish itself by creating a boundary here and here, and then when you feed a test input, testing input, then it will tell you, okay, this lies in this class or this lies in this class. So the important thing is, clustering is actually giving you classification in terms of the class. It is saying this is belonging to C1 class or this belongs to C2 class, and you know that C1 is cat or C2 is dog. So it will give you only classification. It will give you separation between the two classes, that is C1 and C2, and it will the test data set. If it lies in here, then it will say it belongs to C2, or if it lies here, it belongs to C1. So this type of clustering is unsupervised phenomena where no labels are provided. So this is another data set, and you know that if this type of data set is provided, then what will happen is that machine learning will come up with the function fx, which looks like this and this. So by doing this, you are actually separating the data set into two different parts, and labels are not provided. Once it's trained, then only the color becomes different. You can check it out. If this is trained, then only this is red and this is blue. Earlier it was all black. By showing this means you are not giving any labels to it. Machine learning has to come up with the approach to create labels for this by separating them into two parts. Any question here?
Sir, application wise, how unsupervised learning is used and how supervised learning is used?
See, in terms of application, you will see once we will be going into the details of all this, you will come to know what are the applications because they will be, in your labs also it will be there. We will understand that slowly and slowly. Understand? So,
Okay, sir. Okay,
so
sir.
applications in terms of regression, we will see what are the applications. In this also, we will see what are the applications. So don't worry about it. But as far as the important thing that is considered here is that the concept should be clear that what are these two different type of learning. So in there is a third type of learning also, which is semi-supervised. And in this semi-supervised, what happens is actually the algorithms actually deal with partially labeled training data set. So all of them are not labeled. Like the data sets, some of them will be labeled, some of them are not labeled. And that type of situation is quite common, and in practically it happens also. Like if you have, something, some Excel sheet from some company, and in that, Excel sheet, some of the data will be, labeled, some of them will not be labeled because of the carelessness of the employees. It can be the case. So that type of situation where you have lot of unlabeled and labeled data sets, that lot of unlabeled and very little labeled data set, that type of category is called as semi supervised. This type of learning we will not be going into detail of it, it's not part of this course, but if you are really interested you can go through it by yourself. These are the advanced learning algorithms that will be there, which you can learn by yourself. And the third and the final one is reinforcement learning. This is also one of the advanced topics of machine learning and deep learning. So this is of, this is very important also. Like if you know these concepts of reinforcement learning, it really helps you out in, standing out from your colleagues, or anyone in your, anyone in the industry, because it's in huge demand. This particular area is in huge demand. And just to give you a highlight overview, not going into the details of it, what reinforcement learning is, it's all about, how a robot interacts with the environment. It is very similar to what we do in our life. In reality, you see, when you were a kid, and when you were learning something about whether that thing is a cat or that thing is a dog, you are not told by, sometimes you are told by the, you know by your parents that this is a cat or this is a dog. But there are some situations where, if nobody is there, what you will do is you will try to, hit a cat, then cat will not do anything. But if you hit a dog, then it will bark at you, and it might be the case that the dog will bite you also. So that type of thing is, a learning process that happens for a person. So what happens is, suppose this is a dog or a cat which is sitting in an environment. This is an environment, and a cat and dog is sitting over here. You as an agent, you try to touch a cat, it will not do anything to you. So by saying it is not doing anything to you, is basically you are getting a reward out of this particular environment as zero. So it's not doing you anything. So by saying this thing, you are taking an action here, right? You are touching you are touching that cat or a dog animal. So this is an action that you are taking, and the reward that you are getting from cat is, nothing happens, and it slowly, moves to some other side, and you feel comfortable in doing that. So you know that, oh, this type of thing must be a cat. But in the other case, when it's a dog, it barks at you, or it can, bite you also. In that case, you put a reward of -4. By saying -4 is, it really, it created a painful situation for you. So you are getting a minus reward here. So in that type of situation, your mind must have, get acquainted with this particular thing, that okay, if I touch a dog, it will bite at me, or it will, bark at me, and it's a very horrible situation. So you, on that basis, your mind starts learning about the environment which you are around. So that type of thing is, this type of reinforcement learning is more close to human learning. The other ones which we are discussing, the supervised or unsupervised, they are not close to human learning. They are, you are providing the example, they are not exactly close to human learning, but they are very less close to it. But reinforcement learning is one of the algorithms that is very close to human learning, and most of the robots are actually implemented using all these reinforcement learning techniques. So this thing will not be covered here. It will be, some way or the other in advanced courses. If I'll teach here, then this is that type of, subject, because it's a completely different field, and it requires a lot of mathematics and probability to understand this. So any questions till now regarding all the things that I have told you right now, or if it is not, then this particular lecture is over for today, and the recording for this will be uploaded onto YouTube, and I will give that link to you on Google Classroom so you can watch that offline if you are interested. Any questions?
Sir, in this course of ours, will we be going through Bayesian inference or?
No, it will not be that. It will be deterministic, and I'm not going into the Bayesian inference of all these things.
Okay, sir.
Any other question? Okay, then for this particular class, it's done now. And for your labs, it will be, it will be active from next week actually, because I have not taught anything, so it doesn't, look good also, like without knowing anything. If you are doing the lab, so there is no point in doing that also. So we are working on that, and we will get back to you once these things are, if reach some place, and then we will start the labs. So if you do not have any questions, so let's close this class today, and then we will meet next time. Okay,
Sir,
thank you. Yeah.
लैब का टाइमिंग आई डिडंट गेट एक्चुअली.
Lab is, I think, on just a second. I'll just tell you. Lab will happen from Wednesday 2 to 4.
Oh, Wednesday. Okay, we have I have another lab, HPC lab 2 to 5.
Okay, but the thing is, for our case, it's from 2 to 4.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you, sir.
Okay. Any other question?
No, sir.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much, and we'll meet in the next class.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.